Hello,
Hello.
I'm Tom, and I'm the
All right.
director of STRAFE, and Steve is the lead programmer.
Cool. And we had a bid incentive set up for this game for deciding which of the three guns to use. If someone,
no.
if someone would let me know which one won that.
Let's see here. You will be using this shotgun.
All right.
Yay!
Crowd
That's what I
favorite.
was hoping for.
Yeah.
I thought you would get stuck with the esports railgun.
I will admit I was a little worried too. So for this run, for marathon safety purposes, we'll use traditional mode.
Nice.
That way, if we die, oh well, we can keep going.
Do you have stackable mutators right now?
Oh
Or
yeah,
only one?
everything is unlocked on this
So
file.
you should. There might be a dumb one we can add on, right? Oh yeah, you're killing it.
Yeah, haven't won all of them yet, but
Big head mode.
It's great to see those. Yeah, big head mode is pretty good. It's great to see those crowns.
yeah. You know what? Let's be a little silly. We won't count this as an official time for the category, but whatever. Who cares? It's fun.
We're ruining your streak.
Nah,
We're
who
ruining
cares?
your streak.
That just
Now I feel bad.
that just means I have to play it more. All right.
So the microtransactions means we can get more out of you.
I saw those tweets. Those are wonderful. So whoever is control of time, when I take the food from this dispenser, time starts, and time ends when we hit the terminal in the cockpit. So
That's great.
so 3, 2, 1, strafe. So while we're getting started, Steven and Tom, if you guys wouldn't mind, this is already hilarious.
Yes.
If you guys wouldn't mind talking about like how you got together as a team and got to where you're designing Strafe in particular, like how this game came about.
Oh, sure. Steve, you mind if I start this?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so I was a director of music videos and commercials for the 10 years before making Strafe.
Oh, cool.
And Steve was a production assistant that had helped me on a lot of videos and just was an amazing guy at it. He was just very good work ethic, didn't complain about anything, and I've grown to like him a lot because of that. And then I found out through a mutual friend that he was this really good programmer, and in doing so, I found out about middleware for Unity that allowed me to make levels kind of how I did in the Hammer editor back
Nice.
for Half-Life, or the old id Tech engines for Quake, when I was just modding. And I reached out to Steve and was like, hey, shot in the dark, I hear you're a programmer, you know Unity, do you know C# or any of that? Do you want to potentially make a game? There's a game I really want to play and it doesn't exist. And I sent it to him, and he says that when he got the email, he was actually playing Quake Live.
Oh,
He
wow,
was like,
nice. Good timing.
This makes sense. Yeah, exactly. So we started working on it in our spare time, and we basically became game developers because we wanted to play this game.
Nice.
So that's the short of it.
So,
It probably wasn't that short, but
oh
yeah.
no, that was actually the perfect length because I wanted something to fill through the first level, and that Icarus 1 went through nice and quick. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And as we're starting Icarus 2, people who know Doom probably recognize this
Yeah.
area a little bit. So, yeah, how did you ultimately decide what games to reference as you were designing this? Because we have this, there's references to Tribes, there's Wolfenstein, which seems a
Unreal.
bit natural.
Yep. Any old id Tech and game is basically in there, of course. It comes down to this a follow your heart type design method. It was being coming from the world of directing. When we started development, we had the decision of let's treat game dev like filmmaking, where everything is funneled through me as a director, but anyone on the team is willing to, they're able to bring up ideas and contribute. So overall, we had everyone's point of view brought to the table, but then it was filtered through my taste. So if the game, even if it was a bad decision, it was still like had a soul behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was the idea behind that. So we ended up finding a incredible breadth of games that we included. Like, yeah, you said Tribes. Unreal was, you know, an inspiration for some of the weapons. We have Half-Life was a big inspiration because even though we say 1996, the joke was that we were ahead of our time. You know, we were kind of like leading the time there. So we were referencing a lot of games from 98, 99, and then I'd say the early 2000s, but trying to keep it that crunchy Quake aesthetic.
Right.
And then a lot of roguelikes as well. I think most of all is Spelunky for me, because that game left a huge impact as far as just the amount of time it ate of my life.
Yeah, there was a period like a year ago where I was just playing Spelunky solidly like 3, 4, 5 hours a day, every single day. And I'm not good at Spelunky, but I was still playing it non-stop.
Have you gotten good?
I wouldn't say so, but then I'm comparing myself to people who consistently get hell runs, so...
Okay. Yeah, I would do probably about 3 or 4 hell runs a week when I was playing, and it was just because I would do the loop. I would, you know, like if I didn't get the secret, I would restart, or if I missed something, and it would just, it's just like I didn't consider I was beating the game unless I was going to hell. That sounds so dark. And it really just came down to, I mean, I had about 700 hours in the game by the time I started getting into a game called Cave Blazers, and that's kind of my new roguelike of choice.
I started playing that for like a little bit and haven't gotten into it yet.
It's pleasant. I enjoy it. It definitely, going back to Spelunky after, I'm so used to the movement in Cave Blazers, it feels alien to me, which is bizarre, but seeing the announcement for Spelunky 2 has me very, very excited.
Oh, same. Honestly, like going to any other shooter after playing this for like a couple hours, like everything feels slow.
Yeah, it's weird how much you get into a game and then how it affects even your perception of the same game you just left, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's times I come back to Strafe after playing, like I was playing the new Wolfenstein, I was playing, you know, I'll play Doom multiplayer sometimes, and I'll go back to this, and then I'm like, I don't remember it feeling this way, and then after an hour, it feels great, and I love it, and I go back to other games, and I'm like, I don't remember this feeling this way, and it's an endless cycle of tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's your favorite weapon when playing this? You mentioned railgun is sort of the esports, and I'm assuming there's a pair of air quotes around that, but...
Yeah. It's just, you have a lot of people who just instantly run to the railgun because it's a high-skill weapon.
Yeah.
And I think the most fun starter weapon is the shotgun because of the mess it makes. I also feel like the secondary is really good to control. Machine gun and then railgun, in my opinion. But I also think the railgun has some of the most interesting and fun upgrades. Like the black hole is awesome.
Oh yeah.
I love the feeling of the disc launcher. But Steve, what's your favorite? If you have to choose one gun between the pickups and the upgrades, what do you think your favorite is? And then I'll try.
Oh, between anything.
Everything.
Probably the nail gun.
Yeah.
Either the upgrade version or the standalone.
The nail gun upgrade is my current PB with this game in this style, because you can one cycle the boss fairly easily with it.
Yeah, it's probably the most fun I've had with a gun. I love the control, just letting go of the trigger and having that explosion. It just feels so strong.
Oh yeah.
I think it's hard for me because the plasma gun also is very fun for me. Just like, I think the plasma climb, I really can't decide. So I'd say between one of those two. Oh, I didn't even notice you had Airbud.
Yeah, I just picked him up out of a chest, so everyone say hi to Airbud.
Okay.
Wow. I did not notice you though. I'm also very partial to the disc launcher.
Yeah, that's maybe my favorite upgrade. Like, I consider doing railgun on these runs periodically, because it is that sort of high risk, high reward. If you're just running a base railgun, it's very slow, but if you get those upgrades, things just pop off real fast.
I have to say, it's very nice to be able to watch someone stream the game who's very good at it. Like,
Thank you.
often we will end up watching someone who's still pretty new to the game, or shooters aren't their main genre. So you show up and you see them like see a door and then pass it, and you're like, come on, no, like it makes the levels look just super broken. So it's good to see, like, you have a very competent understanding of how the levels are laid out, the flow of them. It's just it's good to watch.
Yeah, and I'm only at like 66 hours recorded in this game, so
really?
I still have room to improve on this, honestly.
Do you know where like the Kickstarter secrets are, and like to manipulate those, or?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I know of the pre-order, which I think was also a Kickstarter weapon, the WP17.
Yeah.
Which, if we don't have much time, I can show people that one. But if we have more time, there's another secret that I think would be much more interesting to show off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have about 4 tiers of secrets. We have the fuse boxes that give you armor and health. We have the Kickstarter secrets, which are mainly, I believe, Steve, if I'm right, only in Icarus. Then we have the big secrets, the ones that are like the other games hidden in the game. And then we have commands that you could put into one DOS that'll show you kind of interesting Easter eggs.
Yeah, and one DOS, for those curious, there are mini games that are not really inside of STRAFE, but they're naturally in the game itself. And that's where they have like the daily challenges and a weekly speed challenge even, which I was doing right before this to practice. And, well, as you do. And when you get on the leaderboards, if you're high ranked enough, I think, there's a brick, you get your name on it with a little quote. And so, as I was running, I got my name attached to the quote, "I speedrun to avoid my problems." So like, how do you guys know me that well?
Yeah, I spent like, I think maybe just an evening writing a bunch of really stupid quotes that I was like, you know what, if we just pull a high speeds and then attach it to a quote, I think it could be really confusing as people go, where do I type in my quote?
Yeah.
And have false attributions, like. So, also, if you get, Steve added this great feature where if you hold number 1 on the speed zone, you get a golden gun in the standard game. So, as you're holding that, your gun skins change just to be like solid gold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like, if you're the number 1 shotgun, you'll have a golden shotgun. Or
Yeah.
if you're the number 1, whatever.
Right now I'm only number 2, but I only did a couple of attempts, so the opportunity still exists.
I really love anytime I start to poke around the speed zone, I start to just get addicted to it, because every time you finish, you're like, I could have done better, right? You want to just shave those seconds off.
I also think big head mode should be the official category for speedrun. Throw that.
So to go on like the categories thing, there is naturally an any percent where anything goes but no modifiers, because that's been since the very beginning before we had modifiers, so just keep it consistent. Traditional mode is designed to be marathon safe. You also don't do things like, you don't rob from the shops. It's to make it slightly more tactical, and it does slow down the game because you have to actually go look for money and stuff. Unless you just want no items, but you want items. 1 second off par. Oh,
That hurts.
that hurts. And of course you can just play this game methodically and slowly like on your own, but that's not as fun. That's what I did, like starting out, like getting a sense of the levels and all of that.
And I think that's necessary, is this understanding of, that's what Spelunky did for me, was realizing that I didn't have to memorize my inputs and my time, but memorize the behaviors of the enemies, and so I could approach any situation that's thrown at me right.
And yeah, and that's
you
what
need
I
to
love
kind of-
about roguelikes in general,
Yep.
is that's how you approach all of them.
So with this, it's, yeah, you definitely start, you can rush through it, but you can think you're kind of you're missing that learning opportunity. And once you figure out the behaviors of the enemies, you're able to just start blazing. But we also, I kind of put in a few bottlenecks, things like the bench, things like the upgrade machines that slow it down, because if you were running from enemies constantly, and it creates more tension as you're trying to use it. There's been many times where I've had to like run around a room or wait out, you know, like because I didn't kill all the enemies while my gun was getting upgraded. And I think moments like that tension create a high, whereas if it was constantly nothing but speed, I actually think that would diminish some of the shock from it. And you get too used to it.
And that's partly why I like doing this style of play instead of just raw any percent. Also, just doing any percent, it's kind of limited and more luck based, because the fastest approach is just take the machine gun, get the plasma secondary, and then just get all the enemies in a line and just wipe them out one after another.
Like butter, you know, like it's a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a lot of fun, but it means that if you don't get that particular combination, then, you know, your run's over and you have to reset. So.
You just got a big acid haul.
Yeah, I dislike that haul now.
What is your PB?
Oh, you have double jump, you're good.
Yeah, in this style, it's 5719. I don't have a solid any percent yet, but I'm working on that one. And I haven't managed 100% because that drone that we saw a moment ago, I can never get it to cooperate. It just won't cooperate.
Do you know about the feedback email that we use for bugs and stuff?
Yeah, I think I've actually sent you guys a couple emails to that because I've done a Let's Play series on this, and one of the earliest episodes, like, that was my first time finding the glitch shop, but I also had like actual glitches in it, and so it was just like, thank you for that thing, but also like stuff is slightly broken, so here you go.
I think I remember that. Okay, yeah, so I'm just stating that so that if you see something that in speedrunning, you know, is not a huge change or is something that we might be able to look at into improving or fixing, like, feel free to send it over.
Oh, absolutely.
We have no guarantees, but I think it's good to know, because it's the only things that we could consider adding or fixing are things that we're aware of, right?
Oh,
And,
yeah.
You know, we're not speedrunning the game, so we kind of, you know, throughout 3 years of development, it's gotten to the release, and we're like, we'll play it casually, but it's just, my computer just froze, so hopefully I don't lose you guys.
I also want to make a comment about that enemy that we just fought that rushed us down called the Brick. Why do you hate us? Like, that's not necessarily the worst enemy in the game, but it can be very obnoxious.
Yeah, well, there was, so when we initially shipped the game, you know, we had about 20 enemies in, and each had very unique AI, but there were still a lot of similarities perceived between them. We were getting a lot of people saying all they do is the same thing, and it's like, we were like, we know they don't because we spent the time making it, but like, it's what can we do, you know, like to fill in the holes of the other enemies' behaviors. But even in that design, you know, we noticed that when we got to the Black Canyon, there were no enemies that were a little bit of a bullet sponge. We wanted an enemy that did make you go, oh shit, when you saw it. You know, it wasn't just I'll be able to mow it down with like 2 hits. And if you have a rocket launcher, it goes down.
Or the plasma cannon. That's maybe the best one.
Yes. So I think the brick, the soldier, which is the big super soldier at the end that shoots like a 5 spread.
Yeah.
And the war machine was intended to be, but because you're so powerful by the end of the game, that's the little Joby like spider. That,
yeah, that
shoots
thing.
at you. Those were kind of the enemies that we were like, okay, let's have a few that are a little larger, a little bit crazier, and so the brick we limit, I think, them to 1 or 2 per level. There's none in level 2, and then level 3 it's just dark, so it makes them even more terrifying.
All right.
We thought it was really cool to have like a 2-stage enemy of having to shoot it in the face to get its vulnerable spot open, and we started designing more and more enemies like that towards the end of the game.
Yeah, because there's like the tyrant kind of thing that you have to knock down and then kill properly. That's another like 2-stage sort of thing.
Yep. That's an homage to the what were they, Steve? The I forget the names of the enemies in Quake.
Yeah, I'm forgetting it too. But
I think they were just like goals or something like that. Where they would rip meat out of their ass and throw it at you in Quake. So we had the biozombie rip like an organ out of its chest and throw it at you. Even as far as like putting an homage in the animation, so that it was very obvious that's what we were going for.
Yeah. Also,
But yeah, like the
I was to say, speaking of the homages, one of the levels of secrets is the prototype weapons, which we generally don't see because they're pretty difficult to come across. There is a reliable way to spot them, but there's not a reliable way to spot the reliable way. So there's references to like Super Hot in there, and Serious Sam. There's one that the green King Skeletor. I don't actually know what that's a reference to, so I was hoping you could...
it's a Shadow Warrior 2.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's another Devolver game.
Yeah, that is one that I had not played, so that explains why I didn't recognize it.
There's another one that might be hard to recognize because the game isn't out yet. it's from a game called Gibhard from Bram. He's a developer that worked at Blizzard that's now over at Valve. He was making his own roguelike FPS that has been made in his spare time for the last 4 or 5 years, and it was just really interesting. So we asked him, "Hey, you want to put one of your rocket launchers in our game?" And we did so, but the game hasn't come out yet. So
I either haven't seen that or didn't recognize that I didn't recognize it. I might have thought it was like from like one of the Quake games or just something that I kind of vaguely knew about.
just make sure to tell everyone that he stole it from us.
Can do.
It's an interesting take on it. He's going more like Doom in the aspect. Well, it's a voxel-based level with billboard-based enemies that he still built them in 3D and then like broke the photo them out into, which we did. We actually borrowed that approach for Totino's Quest.
Yes.
Because I think he uses ZBrush, but we ended up using Blender, and we were able to make the Josh Skelton, who is the artist and developer of a game called Delver. He did all the art for Totino's Quest, and it was just awesome to see him actually make these things in 3D, convert them into sprites, and then that's what we used for our homage to Doom.
Took a slightly nasty moment right there. But we
107 health.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good for being what's just happened. Normally, if one of those acid guys like jumps on me, I will lose like 40-50 health between the attack and then the acid explosion, which also to explain one of the mechanics in here. Yes, the orange blood is acid, so when it spills onto the ground, walking on it hurts you. But part of the reason that these enemies explode into blood, besides it being really cool, is that counts as like a surface covering, so you can cover up acid with blood, and then the ground becomes safe again.
Yep. And also, like a more passive reason that we want a persistent gore other than it's just fucking cool is that, like, you have a sense of where you've been.
Yes.
You know, a lot of games, especially in like the PSX era or 64, I would get stuck in a level and go, have I been here before? There's nothing here. Okay, where do I go? Well, in Strafe, if it's covered in blood and guts, you've been there, you know? So, you know, you have like a breadcrumb trail of carnage.
Yeah, and I've watched people playing this the first time, or like one of their early runs, and they don't quite gather that initially. But then when they do, it's like, oh, that's a thing. That makes total sense. And they just start immediately getting quicker in handling, you know, the game, because they know like they're not backtracking, or they are backtracking.
Yep. I think the big thing to overcome is that we don't hold your hand when in Icarus you realize you have to find the key card, then backtrack to the door. That the first time until you realize that language is we see people kind of get confused.
Yeah. Although that's...
We've done a lot to update as well as to make it a bit smoother, but and removing some problem rooms from the spawn that we've had, and since like Icarus was the first zone we ever made, so we had some just problem rooms that I made. So I just had to go like, yeah, you know, get those out of there because this is too confusing for people, and rightfully so. But if you've been playing early on before the Millennium Edition, there were like rooms that had mandatory elevators that would, you know, create a choke point, and you'd lower it down, you might get like hit by an enemy, and it was something that we were so close to it, we never noticed that, you know, of course that's how it works.
Yeah,
so,
and that's a very easy thing to do when developing anything, is just getting so close where you don't realize what's wrong.
Yep.
It was asked when I was doing another run with the whole like blood and persistent gore thing, does this mean you guys are really big fans of Brutal Doom?
I like parts of Brutal Doom. Like, I think that there's a lot of angst that comes with Brutal Doom that I don't like, because like I think like Doom guys like fuck you and like flick it off, and that stuff is like I could live without, but I really like the technology behind it. So I think they as in like, I don't think the actual developer, but people are probably doing Brutal Quake as well now, and Brutal you know, like, I think I've seen things where people are just kind of carrying the torch and bringing persistent gore to more classic games. And if I remember correctly, I saw a video of Brutal Chex Quest. Hilarious.
Okay, that's funny.
But yeah, like, I think there's anytime you have low tech, like technology or lo-fi technology doing really complicated things, I find it more profound than usually AAA photorealistic technologies now, because it brings more attention to the systems. So in Thief 2, if you've liked any old stealth games, the systems in that I think really shine because the game feels so hacked together nowadays. Like, you look at it and you go, I see all the flaws in this. So the fact that guard noticed this, or that this, you know, like rope arrow stuck to that, or like the fire puts out the water, it all feels more intriguing to me. And so I think that's what we try to do with Strafe, is create this like high-tech lo-fi feeling.
So to give a small run update, we hit one of the weapon modifiers a moment ago, and now our shotgun is a flat cannon. Or as I like to call it, the flechette gun, because it's little like flechettes, little bits of glass. There are 3 primary and 3 secondary upgrades for every gun in the game. We were talking about the disc launcher, the plasma laser thing. Occasionally, I won't bother to take them, but this one's really cool.
There's a few that are just were put in for like when you didn't really see a need for another really strong one, you go, what's fun? What's cool to play with? Mm-hmm. And you know, so in the shotgun, often the C4, unless you want to play around with it, it's not the easiest secondary to use.
Little Joby.
Joby Graveyard Party?
Joby Graveyard. Unfortunately, we need to go fast, so no Joby today.
Have you ever played as Little Joby and picked up a Little Joby?
I haven't picked him up. I've done.
I don't think I've done that. That's really funny.
I did.
It just feels like a consoling friend.
I did play as Little Joby, and I was honestly like kind of giddy when I realized that no, it's not that you're shrunk down. You are Little Joby. Like your arms are green, your sounds are different.
Yeah, that's something that our artist Nick got really excited about.
Like of the Millennium Edition modifiers, like what ones do you guys enjoy using the most,
Oh man.
or enjoy making
There's a lot
even?
of them I love. Yeah, Steve, I'll let you answer this first.
I'm trying to think. I really like Instagib, and I really like Rocket Arena. Those are probably
Rocket Arena is the best form of stupidity.
It is.
So I mentioned the idea of modifiers or mutators to Steve, and I thought he would shoot the idea down instantly because it was just a lot of work. You know, it might have been just a waste of time. And the next day, we hop on Skype to talk about work, and he shows me all the enemies with big heads, and he's like, "We're doing it." that was like definitely a cool thing to see up front. But I get a lot of fun out of Hyperdrive. It's a really dumb one that just seeing enemies fly different directions when you kill them always seems to make me laugh.
That one was difficult for me when I tried running it, just because it creates a sense of gravity, like literal gravity, that doesn't match what you're expecting, because things don't fall to the side. They don't. They fall down. Except
So
in Hyperdrive, no.
Gameplay-wise, I think the two for me are most definitely scrambled cache and scrambled enemies. I think that's the most fun because you're not like, it allows the game to break in some fun ways, but you can get, you know, different enemies in Icarus, and if you played Icarus a fuck ton, you have now the chance to like see it in a new light. You get some interesting weapons that are designed for the later in the game, and they're fun to play with, but you can also see that why they were designed for later in the game. And there was one mutator I sadly couldn't get in, which was just a dumb one, which was STRAFE 64, which would have put a very strict distance fog on the game, and then blurred all the textures, and then forced you to play with a controller.
Oh wow. Well, hey, you have the controller support now in the new patch that came out yesterday, so the opportunity is there. That's all I'm saying.
If we get to a point where we have the time and the will and the ideas, we might extend the mutator list, but there's quite a few mites there.
Yeah.
So what's your in-game time? 29 minutes?
29:30 at the end of the burbs.
Yeah, that's great.
Which,
We estimated an hour and a half.
I gave it an hour and a half because, one, if I take a death, the whole thing just grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
Even though like the run isn't over, like you gotta slow down so that you don't take another dumb death. And also, I kind of wanted to put time in there for the secret. And also watching so many Games Done Quick and other like charity marathons like this, people always tend to run over time, like accidentally. It just happens. So I was like, let's overestimate a little bit, and you know, we'll have a buffer in case that's needed.
I think you should just brag and say you're just too good. And
that is the marathon runway, but
no one could have conceived my skill.
So one of the smallest details that I assume no one cares about, but I'm incredibly proud of, is since you're deep underground, I wanted a zone that had windows that reminded me of Half-Life. So we created the concept of just like these TV screens that parallax and look like windows, but when you shoot them, they start to glitch and they change skyboxes, and that was just such a cool thing that every time I see one I still get excited, but it's also like I don't think anyone cares. These things.
Yeah, like that screen right there. I honestly enjoy that as like part of the style of the level. Like that's just a thing that exists, and like it's kind of silly because like obviously you're deep underground, it's obviously fake, but at the same time, like if you think about it, this would be one why not? That's half of Strafe is why not.
That's very accurate.
But also, like, if you're in a lab underground, you're gonna get all miserable if you don't see the world.
You want it to feel more like Earth, because you're on the edge of the galaxy, you know, like, what can we do to make these people's lives better? And then, as they're ruining the lives of these creatures they're making, evolve into soldiers. Yeah, so... how can we help these horrible people feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I assume there is a plot to this game, but not really.
It's everything was designed with a sense of story in mind, but it was all, you know, nothing's more than just the art you see. So that you don't have to stop and observe the story. You can just experience it. So I guess we've seen a few interpretations from people putting two and two together. For the most part, it's all true. There's nuance to it that we designed around, but it's not a big deal. The point of the Athena area was just to give purpose to the enemies you've been killing the whole game.
Yeah, I
if
tend.
you look in the test tubes,
You see
like, gluttons as their cute, innocent form before they were turned into these, you know, little soldiers.
24 seconds over. Oh well. It's easy to get a little turned around in those fake forests.
Yeah. There's a few rooms that are easy. I mean, just to find the exit alone.
I wish I had spike boots there so I could have just dunked on them.
That would have been awesome. So this soldier, it's amazing during Rocket Arena because the 5 rockets flying out.
Yep. Rocket Arena, for reference, it changes everything shot into a rocket, including every shot by every enemy. So if you remember in the first couple levels, we had those enemies shooting really slow blue bullets that were fairly easy to dodge. I still got hit by a bunch, but you know, they're not that bad. Those are rockets, and they go at full speed. And you just have to deal with it.
The good news is you don't take your own rocket damage though, so you can rocket jump, you can be careless.
And it was during the preview run for this a couple of days ago. I accidentally rocket jumped and almost got taken to the glitch shop.
Oh. Find a way to exploit that.
If that can be done consistently, then like we may have to put that in the rules. Like you can't do that.
Well, the glitch shop is the solution to a problem we couldn't fix. It was Unity has a problem with how what does this do? Rigid body controllers or first-person controllers are controlled.
Yeah.
And what happened was, it would, no matter, like, we spent probably a significant portion of our development time just trying to figure out how to fix this problem, which is, it's unreplicatable, it's untestable, but every time, even if we had the same level and hit respawn, it's almost like a lottery was occurring within Unity, and it would pick one item and turn off its collider, and then if you refreshed it, it would come back, but just for some reason it wouldn't, like when a level spawned, a collider on something wouldn't exist, and sometimes that was a crucial piece of geometry. You'd fall through the floor, sometimes it was a stairway and you couldn't get up, sometimes it was a trigger that you needed to activate to like get through something, and so we had to put in a bunch of redundancies, and when we didn't have a solution and you would just fall through, it would make me so angry because it was just like, you know, like this is unforgivable. So we came up with a solution of, we made the glitch merchant, and we were like, let's like basically apologize to the player and give them some treats for, you know, running into this issue. And so the glitch merchant, in a perfect world, would never be visited. Even when I end up visiting the merchant, I'm still like, oh, you know, there's an item, some health, some scrap, cool.
I honestly thought it was like an intentional design. Like, that it works the same way you just described it, where some surface just doesn't have collision, but that it was like part of your generation. Like, you would just pick a surface and, oh, there's no collision on that now. And if the player happens to run into it and run through it, oh well, you found the secret.
It's very much a solution to a problem, and we wanted to make it feel like that, right? So again, instead of it being a weakness that brings the game down, let's turn it into a strength. So that was kind of the goal.
Yeah. Also a bug that's very specific to our game being procedurally generated, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Steve, I would really like it if we can get the bullet decals off here.
It's kind of cute
It's
in a
only
silly
the
way.
black, I think.
Well, so yeah, we don't have to get into it on stream, but it's an unfortunate fix to something that was much worse.
Okay. You don't know how frequently this type of thing happens, where it's like, oh, this is a minor annoyance, and then I bring it up to Steve, and he's like, actually, that's way better than the alternative, and I'm like, okay. So
Yeah, I guess like with this being procedurally generated, and how do you manage the design process? Like figuring out where you want enemies to spawn in a level, how to design the levels themselves.
So all the levels, I'm sure that with 60-something hours, you've started to realize that, you know, everything's been handmade. And it's just kind of, we decide how to hook them up procedurally. So I thought that was the solution, because if you look at classic shooters, a lot of the things that made those great were its level design. So by creating rooms that felt good and they were good combat spaces, we were able to not create a roguelike where we locked you in a room, cleared it, unlocked the door, locked you in another room, but instead gave you a real level. Hey, this is a real FPS, but also a roguelike, which I hadn't seen before. So that was a big concern for us, and I think it took us a while to figure out exactly how we wanted these levels to be populated, because you don't want them to be too empty, you don't want them to be too full. How does combat feel good? You know, what are the like ratios of enemies? Because it all came down to, we started with our gut feeling, and then just through testing and testing and testing, we landed in an area where we were happy. And it's not perfect. Sometimes, you know, you're always going to run into issues with Rocket Gen, but it's definitely been very enjoyable. There's many times where I still giggle when I'm like going down a hallway and a monster closet opens at the end, or I turn around to like head back into the room and I get surprised by something. A lot of times it just feels really good.
Honestly, like the monster closet is a pretty good solution to the whole like getting a bit of a spook, but not like the recent Doom, where it's just like you walk into a room, it's quiet, you pick up the objective, oh look, there's a bunch of monsters.
Exactly. So we actually found that through having to create something procedurally, you start to realize how much of a game you would have. You start to find your behaviors within that. So, for instance, Monster Closets was a perfect example. We went, when are Monster Closets often used in like the original Dooms? And it was, yeah, you pick up the key card and it's like an surprise moment, or you turn around to backtrack and they need to repopulate the level, or you maybe just a cinematic moment. And if you actually look at those and say, how can we apply that to a proc gen game, it becomes quite simple. You go, okay, we can have these tethered to when you pick up the key card, or interact with something in the level, that's Q's monster closets. There's a chance for that to happen. There's a chance for, if you backtrack to the last room, it to happen. There's a chance of, you know, like, and then when those are in, every time it happens, you have a good chance of it feeling like an authored event, because we would have done that had we authored it. So
Yeah, to go on the idea of like being authored, this traditional mode, it mentions it is 3 lives and a locked seed. And the first time I played it, I thought that meant that you guys had authored a version of the game using the rooms. And so every time you played it, it would be identical. And so the first time that I go through, I get through like Icarus 2 or 3, and I'm going through a couple rooms. I'm like, they authored this really well. Like the rooms, one after another, make total sense. The key card positioning made total sense. I'm like, this is well designed. And then I play it again and realize it's still randomized. And I'm like, the fact that you can randomly create a level that feels that perfect is pretty good.
That's, I mean, if we had made a handmade game, it would have taken half the time. Like, I think Proc Gen, a lot of players who don't develop assume it's a lazy way to do things, but, like, we knew the game we wanted to make coming out of the gate, and it also, it's impossible to test for all the issues that Proc Gen brings up. You got it, nice.
Almost got a 1 cycle. Almost.
So, that was good.
I think my damage stat wasn't high enough, but oh well.
Oh, come on, you still got 2 or 3 in 1 second. So it's just that feeling of like there is this a bit of a confirmation bias, right? Where if you think it's Proc Gen, you're going to assume it doesn't make as much sense as if it was authored. And the goal with Strafe was to, you know, if we did our job, and granted there are always going to be bad cases just due to how many opportunities there are for things to go wrong, but they're just like, oh, so
where are you?
It would ruin your speed run, but we could point you to something in here.
Go for it.
Steve, no, yes or no?
I don't care. If you look around here, you might be able to find something.
Okay. Yeah,
I feel like I saw something already.
We'll just say in this level, there would be the tell on where to find the new screenplay. So
I do believe I see it.
Damn it. it's look, you'd see in there, like, look, and then you'd be able to find a code that you could put in one DOS. I'll just say that.
We're terrible at keeping secrets.
Yeah, that was really fast. That was really fast.
I noticed the door looked a little strange. So, aha. Well, maybe we'll show that during this stream. Maybe we'll let people go play the game and discover it themselves. Time.
And nice.
Whew.
All done.
Yeah.
Full circle. And finding a new secret, come on.
Also, speaking of having the game, I don't know, like, I know a lot of people subscribe to the Humble Monthly Bundle for getting over it with Ben Ifadi, because I saw that was very popular on Twitch. So if you are subscribed, you own this game. It just appeared in the Humble Monthly Bundle for December. So if you're a subscriber, go ahead and play it. What was the time on that run?
I think it was 6 minutes.
46:10.
46:10?
Yes.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That is really good. I have no idea if Big Head Mode